Well, I was meant to be heading to the Isle of Skye today with a friend, but the weather has had other ideas.
This weekend, it's going to get very windy.
We've got warnings in place for both Saturday and Sunday.
Severe gales at times which could cause some disruption.
Yes, that's right, Storm Malik is currently wreaking havoc throughout the country, so we made the decision that it was probably best to postpone our trip. We are hoping to still make it to Skye. It's meant to drop late afternoon, early evening today, and it's also meant to be quite a calm morning tomorrow before the next storm arrives at lunchtime. We're only meant to be going to Skye for 3 nights, so it's potentially already cut short by 1 night, and the weather throughout our trip is not looking great. There's going to be gale force winds and a lot of rain, which means a lot of the things that I'd planned to film on this trip are going to be pretty much impossible to do. But I'm hoping that we'll still make it to Skye for a shorter version of our trip, and there'll still be 1 or 2 videos from the trip. One thing I've learned over the years is that you've just got to work with Mother Nature. You've got to accept it when the weather's bad and do what's best. Just not take any risks and just wait it out. Fingers crossed we'll make it to Skye this evening or tomorrow morning, and I'll speak to you all when we hopefully get there. Well, it's now the next day and I've arrived on Skye. Storm Malik is a thing of the past. However, the beginning of the next storm, Storm Corrie, has just begun. It's got torrential rain right now and the winds are starting to get up as well. And the experts are saying that apparently this evening's storm, Storm Corrie, is going to be even worse than yesterday's storm.
Well, the Met Office says a low pressure system will bring very strong winds to Scotland later, with gusts of 70 to 80 miles an hour, potentially even as high as 90.
Which means the chances of getting out and doing anything today is virtually nil. I really don't fancy going out in this weather and doing photography. It's just wild. So I think the safest thing to do is to check into my accommodation, just sit it out the rest of today, this evening, and into tomorrow morning when it's meant to stop at 6 AM, and then get out first thing tomorrow morning to begin the photography. Fingers crossed it does stop then, so that we can get some stuff done, because there's even more gales and rain coming in tomorrow afternoon. So I'm just going to make the most of the windows of opportunities that we do have. Stay safe, and fingers crossed I get out and about at some point during this trip. With little else to do, I stocked up on supplies and headed to my accommodation, ready to brace a very scary night of stormy weather. The next morning I awoke, feeling a little bit more optimistic. The storm had passed. However, little did I know, my bad luck was only just beginning. Things just aren't going to plan once again. My friends are meant to be joining me today, but they're no longer able to make it, so I'm going to be on Skye on my own for another night or 2. I didn't really know where to go this morning because my plan for this trip had been to go and photograph all the lighthouses in Skye, but the 2 that I really wanted to shoot are quite a long walk from car parks, and they're the less well-known lighthouses that I've never really seen anybody really speaking about or documenting, and I was really looking forward to doing them, but the weather isn't very changeable, and I'm also in this frame of mind where I've not been very well the last few weeks, and I'm just a bit reluctant to go out and do long walks on my own at the moment. Just staying safe, which I guess is a reason why I was looking forward to having friends here, because I knew that I'd have people with me should I become unwell again or anything should happen. So I'm a bit reluctant to go off with the beaten track and the roads and go exploring, which really limits where I can go. So I was like, right, I don't want to really do any iconic locations on this trip, but there's lovely snow on the mountains just now, so I thought I'll go to Fairy Pools. But when I arrived here, I didn't realise that you now have to pay to park here. Yeah, it's just like every time I come up with an idea, I seem to come up with a new obstacle. A new obstacle gets in the way. But if I remember correctly, I'm not too far away from Talisker Bay. I've only been there once, and I'm really in the mood right now to just go and sit at the coast by the beach and just watch the weather fronts coming in and out. So I think that's what I'm going to go and do. And yeah, just hope that I can get some images from this trip, because it's not been the most successful trip so far. My friend said to me this morning that this trip was doomed from the outset, because on the run up to this trip, so many things went wrong. Then we were hit by the storms, now she can't make it, and now everything I'm trying to do is hitting hurdles. I've just got to Talisker Bay and I'm just packing my bag ready to go for the walk, and I realised that all the food that I laid out to take with me today so I could spend the day out photographing, I've somehow managed to leave in my accommodation. And it's not really practical for me to go walking without food. It's now lunchtime, I'm hungry, my body's not capable at the moment of doing things without decent nutrition, so I'm not going to risk going for this walk without any food. So I'm going to have to head back to my chalet and have lunch and then see if I can head out again in the afternoon.
At this point, I was getting really fed up. However, after refuelling, I headed out to Elgol a few hours later for what would end up being my one and only photography shoot from this trip.
Well, it's now a number of hours later. It's about 45 minutes until sunset, and I've come to quite a famous location. This is Elgol in the southwest of the island, and I'm not really sure how I'm feeling about this evening, or late afternoon should I say. We're definitely not going to get a sunset tonight, there's far too much cloud. I'm loving the blue tones. I'm thinking at the bottom of this pier we've got these lovely waves coming in and moving around the scene, and I'm kind of thinking that would be a good photographic opportunity. I mean, it's one that everybody kind of shoots. I don't think it's the most interesting of photographs and compositions, but I think it's all we've really got this evening to work with, so I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to head back to my car now and get all the rest of my gear and see what I can capture.
This was the point where I realised that half the B-roll I'd shot to tell the story of this shoot had been filmed wrong. Yes, that's right, I'd pressed record when I didn't want to record and stop when I did. Things weren't all lost though.
So right now it's quite windy, and there's also quite a lot of sea spray coming over this pier wall. So I've decided the best thing to do is not to take my vlogging camera and my photography camera out. So I'm going to do everything you're going to see for the rest of this video on the same camera. But what I've decided to do is, like I said, I was going to shoot this kind of iconic shot of the pier. Everybody kind of shoots it, but what I like today is the fact that you've got this water gushing up it and it's kind of going over the side of the pier's edge. And I love the bluey turquoisey colours that are present within it. And I'm really annoyed with myself because I didn't take my 3-stop ND filter with me. I've only got an 8-stop and a 20-stop, which is no use for what I'm wanting to do right now. So I've just put on my polarizer onto my camera, and I've also taken out my 8-stop, and then I've got my 3-stop medium ND grad, which I may need to use on the Skye here for this image, but I'll see how I feel when I get down to compose this image properly. But that's basically what I'm thinking just now. It's not very inventive, I know, but today, or this whole trip so far, has been a complete fail, and it would be nice to get a shot here because I've only ever photographed Elgol once before, and I was reasonably happy with the images, but it'd be great to get a really nice shot of the beautiful Coolin Mountains here with that mistiness and the bluey tones that we're getting as we're heading towards sunset. So I'm explaining to you what I've done here. I've got my polarizer on, which is allowing the sea to be a lot darker and more moody. I've put my 3-stop medium grad filter on the top of my camera, which is allowing the clouds and the mistiness on the Coolin Mountains to be exposed. If I take it out, which is what I'm doing just now to try and show you this, you'll see the clouds become quite light, and then when I push it back in, you get that darkness, which just allows those clouds to be so much more moody, and you don't end up with the clouds being overexposed, which is really, really nice. What I'm trying to do, because I've not got my 3-stop filter with me, is I've been playing around with my settings, and I've managed to get a 1-second exposure by putting my f number up to f13 and my ISO down to 64. So like I say, it's giving me a 1 second exposure, which allowing me to get that motion within these waves as they come round. So really it's just a waiting game for these waves to come into the pier, to swirl around, and then to try and capture them in really nice motion. What I'm thinking now for the rest of this hour or so before the sun sets, so it's about half an hour now till the sun sets actually, is I'm thinking about ICM. The rain's starting, it's getting misty, it's getting atmospheric, but the visibility of the mountains is getting very limited. And because of that, you're getting that misty, mysterious sort of feel. And rather than trying to capture that, as everybody does, of this area, I thought it would be quite nice to give ICM a go and see if I can create something of interest.
I hadn't realised it at the time, but some of these images turned out to be some of the best ICM shots I've taken to date.
This trip is really not going to plan. I think just the amount of stuff that's kind of gone, I'm not going to say wrong in the last few days because that's probably the wrong thing to say, but the amount of things that haven't gone to plan over the last few days, it's just left me feeling creatively numb, I suppose, creatively void of inspiration. You know, I'm in one of the most beautiful places in the world and I'm really struggling to do photography. I think obviously the weather has been partly due to that. The last few days have been very unpredictable, it's been tiring, there's been a lot of driving, there's been the sadness of my friend not being able to join me, there's been the worry of other things going on, and then you come here hoping to be filled with creativity and passion and drive, and it's just not happening for me, unfortunately. And now it's torrential rain outside, just as the sun is supposed to set, and that scene looked so gorgeous, and I was trying all these ICM things out, but because the weather front was coming in, it was just getting so grey above the mountains, and that texture and the tonal difference between the mountains and the sky was no longer as prominent as before the rain shower came in. I'm just feeling really, for some reason, uninspired. And I think the best option is to go home or go back to my accommodation and just have a really chilled night, do a lot of reading, maybe have a bath, just chill out, and hopefully tomorrow will be a more successful day.
This turned out to be the end of my trip to the Isle of Skye. Despite little going to plan, my ICM shots saved the day once more. I'd like to end this video by reminding you all, don't be afraid to experiment with your photography. It may just help you get images when you didn't think you would.